Hey, happy, it is Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. I lose track of the days of the week because this year has such a weird feel to it. So I'm gonna do a little bit of lunch and learn, a little bit of a, hey, let's talk. Let's interact. If you've got any questions, let me know. I would love to answer them. So I've invited a bunch of folks, so let's make sure they've got the right link. I just sent it to them. Boom. Okay, there we go. I have one idea to talk about. Morning, Eric. Good to see you, buddy. One idea to talk about, then we're going to answer some questions. The idea is pretty simple. It's a bite-sized lunch and learnable idea. And I think you'll dig it. So hope you're having an awesome day, having a great week. It's sunny here in Nashville. The big thing I'm working on this week is there's a mockingbird right outside my window that I can see right now. And it's, of course, its name is Mocking because it chased off every other adorable bird I have in my yard. I didn't know they did that. Like we have a bird feeder that I absolutely love. Like it's up against the window and you can watch them and like songbirds come. It's amazing. And the mockingbird has chased every single bird away. And now it's come to, I'm going to be honest with you, it overrepresents every bully I've ever dealt with in my life. And so now, like, I'm going to have to clear my schedule over the next couple of weeks to really focus on this mockingbird that I can see right now. All right, here's the one idea, and then I'm going to do some Q&A and then tell you about something awesome that starts Monday. Here's the idea. I believe that fear gets a voice, not a vote. Fear gets a voice, not a vote. What do I mean by that? I don't like when people say that you can be fearless, that you could figure out a way to be fearless, to never have a fear. I don't think that's true. And here's why. I think at every level, when you do something new, when you try something bigger, when you try something you've never done before, there's a little bit of fear that comes with it. For instance, the first time I spoke publicly to 10 people, I was afraid. I had 10-person fear. I was afraid of that. The first time I spoke was at a rehab center. I always tell speakers, if you want to figure out how to get better at speaking, do repetitions. Excellence comes through repetitions, and you're probably not going to find places that want to pay you to speak. So I spoke at a rehab center a couple times because nobody else was competing to go serve the people that were in rehab. And you talk about a group that need hope. It was amazing. So when I spoke to 10 people, I had 10-person size fear. But then I did it, and I did it a couple times, and I got a little more comfortable, and I got used to it. And then I got to speak to 100 people in Oklahoma City, and I had 100-person fear, and the fear was a little bigger. And all of a sudden, I found this new fear. I wasn't fearless. I had 100-person size fear. And what was funny about that event is the first time I ever got paid to speak. And I didn't know how events work. So it was a 4-day event. I went for the entire event. I didn't know as a speaker, you go for your day and then you usually bounce. My wife was like, I don't think you go all 4 days. And I was like, you do. Like I didn't listen to her advice, which always ends poorly. That's why like Jenny and I are doing something together on March 6th that I'll tell you about at the end of this video that I'm so glad you're going to have access to her head because she's a genius. But so I went to the event. I stayed with a family I'd met on the internet. Like that's a fun way to get stabbed. Like if you ever like, I wonder if I get stabbed. It was a random family. It was like, we love your blogs. Do you want to sleep at our house in our rumpus room for 4 days? I did. But I had 100-person fear and it was nerve-wracking and I did it. And I worked on it and I spoke to a couple audiences, 100 people, and I got used to that. And then I got to speak to 1,000 people. And guess what? I had 1,000-person size fear. At each new level, as I expanded, the fear was there. And I worked on it. I worked on it. And then I got to speak to 8,000 people and I had 8,000-person size fear. And so at each new level, there was fear because fear gets a voice, not a vote. So we know it's going to have a voice. When you do something new, you're going to bump into it. When you write an agent and say, hey, I have a book I'd love to tell you about. When you ask a friend to do something for you, you're going to have some fear. It's going to have a voice, but it doesn't get a vote. And what I mean by that is it doesn't get to sit at the table. It doesn't get to say, we're not doing that. Like that's where you get stuck. When fear is the one that has the gavel, like when fear is sitting at the head of the table and goes, no. We don't get to do that. We don't get to join a gym. We don't get to launch a podcast. We don't get to do anything. Like we're in charge. Fear's in charge. When fear is in charge, when its vote is the one that matters most, you don't end up doing stuff and you end up sitting with regret. So my hope for you is that you'll say, hey, fear gets a voice. I'm going to bump into some fears. That's usually just a sign that I'm stretching myself, that I'm going beyond what I'm doing. And now I see the fear, I work on it, I recognize it, but it doesn't get a vote. That's what I'd write down. If you're going to write down on a piece of paper, what I would write down from this session is fear gets a voice, not a vote. And that's fresh on my mind because next week I'm doing something I've never done before. It's something that I've never actually tried before. And I launched it yesterday. And there's always fear around a new launch. That's just the reality. So what is it? I'm doing something called the 5-day Overcoming Overthinking Challenge. And I'm going to teach 5 days in a row, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, on Facebook, live lessons like this, where I cover content. They're going to be 45 minutes to an hour long, and it's all free. I've never done that. I've never said, okay, how do I slingshot people? How do I really pull them back, super serve them, give them tons of content about how do you overcome overthinking? And I even wrote down, here's what we're going to cover. It's actually a lot bigger than this Post-it note. It'll probably end up being a 50-page outline. That's how I'm going to do it. But day one is empathy. How do you use empathy to overcome overthinking? And there's a simple definition of empathy I'll share, but there's 2 types of empathy you need. You need empathy for others and you need empathy for yourself. Can you guess which type of empathy is the hardest? Yeah, it's empathy for yourself. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to give you practical lessons, practical tips that you can go, okay, I'm going to work on that. Day 2 is change. How do you navigate change? There's 4 types of change every life goes through. If you feel overwhelmed right now by the amount of change, there's only 4 types. And I'll teach you what they are, and I'll teach you what you need to do in each moment of those changes and how to use, soundtracks, kind of positive, repetitive thoughts to get through those. Day 3 is resilience. I really started to think about what do people need right now? They need resilience. There's a million things we could talk about: character, loyalty, generosity, honesty. But the thing I think most people need right now is resilience, because it's challenging. It's a challenging year. This is a challenging year that's following a challenging year. So let's talk about real ways you can overcome overthinking and use resilience. Day 4, hustle. It's a popular word. We're going to redefine it. We're going to focus on what does it mean to really hustle. And day 5 is how do you write a new anthem? A new anthem, a new soundtrack, a new playlist for your life. And then day 6, this is crazy. There's a bonus day. My wife Jenny is going to join me, and we're going to do a lesson called How to Be Married to a Dreamer. If you follow me at all, you know the brains of the organization is Jenny. She is dropping what I always call elegant grenades. She's constantly dropping elegant grenades, these thoughts that change my perspective. And for years, people have said, hey, will you write a book? Will you do an event? Will you do on a podcast? And Jenny always says no. So this is the first time she's going to sit down with me, and we're going to talk for an hour about what does it mean to build a big marriage and chase big dreams? How do you do those 2 things together? How do you make sure that you don't get divided as you do that? And we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Like, we've made so many mistakes. But 20 years in, we've learned a handful of things. And I can't wait for you guys to see it. So I'll drop the link in there. It's acuff.me/challenge is like the fancy pretty link. But here's the direct link. If you click on that, you'll go directly to the challenge. We've already had 2,300 people sign up, which is awesome. Like 2,300 people. I think there's 10,000. I think there's 10,000 people that are going to go through this challenge. And dude, again, back to that first idea I shared, fear gets a voice, not a vote. Fear would tell me, you've never done this. 10,000 people is a lot of people. It's going to take a lot of time. It's free. Like, there's all these kind of fears getting chattery, but they don't get to vote. They don't get to vote on what I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is teach an awesome 5-day challenge next week. And then Jenny is the bonus day, and there's prizes. That's what's super fun too. We're doing prizes. And one of them, spoiler alert, is definitely going to be a Lego set. One of them actually is going to be one of the Lego sets that I have on that shelf. What? One of these. There's 4 different big ones on that shelf. Okay. Let's answer some questions. Lunch and learn. All right. Let's talk. I'm going to jump into the questions you guys put in the live chat. It's my chance to say, hey, is there anything I can help you with? You know the handful of topics that I write about. I write about goal setting. I write about books. I write about public speaking. I write about, encouragement. So if there's something I can help you with, that, by all means. Okay. I have fantasy conversations in my head, sometimes debates, sometimes just stuff seems to get in the way of actual thinking. Your thoughts? Yeah. So I think that most people don't think about how they think. Most people, I think one of the core things you can learn is that thoughts aren't something you have. Thoughts are something you hone. You get to kind of take them captive. You get to kind of say, these are the thoughts I want. You get to say, okay, why did that happen? Why did I think that way when that person text messages me? So I think that what I've learned over the years is, if I'll be faithful to go, hold on a second, what does that thought mean? Why did I have that thought? What is it revealing? You can learn a lot about your life. I think self-awareness starts with how you think. And if you can kind of engage in that and put some time around that, you can really become self-aware. And that's a powerful thing. All right. 10-person size fear. Perfect. I'm really glad to have Jenny help you with your life. Teamwork is the best. She's going to be blast Saturday, March 6th. I would say it's worth the price of an admission, but it's free. So you can't really say the price of admission. That doesn't make any sense. Speaking to crowds is easy. It's the one-on-one that scares me. Yeah, I get that, Willie. I would agree with you. A crowd of 1,000 is easier to me than a crowd of one. But if I prepare and if I leave space, and if I'm patient, it's less intimidating. And if I know, like, I write soundtracks for big meetings I have. So if I have a one-on-one conversation that I'm stressed about, I'll write a new soundtrack. So like one of them might be, they want the same thing I want. They want us to win. Like, they're not against me. This person isn't my enemy. They want to win too. How do I help them win? And so I try to have, when it's a stressful situation, I try to create the thought I want to listen to during that conversation versus letting my thoughts kind of get all over the place. Let's see. That's definitely the trunk. Perfect imagery, crowd size. John, how do you manage your goal expectations for different seasons of life? Love to hear how you handle those. So Mark, great question. I think the first thing you have to understand is there are different seasons. I think that one of the things that self-help people, motivational people like myself, do that's not fair is that they give you advice based strictly on their current setup. And what I mean by that is, it's not fair if I say, you should be able to write 3 hours every weekend. Like, you should. Like, but maybe I can because I have 2 teenage daughters and one does lacrosse and one does swimming. So they're at swim practice on Saturdays and I've got some space to do that. But if you're the parent of a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, your life is differently shaped. So I think that's kind of how I think about seasons. I look at it and go, okay, when I had young kids, I had to get up at 5 a.m. Like, that's what I had to do to get up and write early. And then as my kids have gotten older and some other time has opened up, I've been able to kind of lean into that and say, okay, now I have some more time. I think the key is you have to have patience with it. I think if you want a recipe for frustration, try to do the same amount of hustle in every season, regardless of your life. It's so frustrating. Aiden, can I get better at life? I think you can. I mean, unless you're talking about Life cereal, because Life cereal is pretty, in my opinion, it's already pretty high up on the list of delicious cereals. Life is great, just regular Life. I don't need the fancy cinnamon. But yeah, I 100% think you can get better at life. I really do. And whether it's in my own life or the thousands of people I've worked with on their lives, like, I've just seen it happen so many times. I think, Aiden, that we as individuals are the worst judges of what we're capable of. And that cuts both ways, dude. I believe you're a dude. I call everybody dude. That cuts both ways because we don't know what we're capable of and we end up making mistakes that we never thought we would have done. But we also don't know what we're capable of and end up building and dreaming and accomplishing things we didn't even know we were capable of. So yes, I do think you can get better at life. What is your best advice for someone who took the risk to follow a dream only to have it blow up and put you back in the need to take care of responsibility mode? So here's what I'd say. Don't buy into the either or. Either I'm fully dreaming or I'm not dreaming. Either I'm fully in responsibility mode or I'm not responsible. Life is much messier than that. There's a lot more gray between the black and white. So if it were me, I would say, okay, I did 80% dreaming or 90% dreaming and it blew up. And so now I need to do 80%, 70% responsibility, but I still need that 10%, that 20% dream. So I would own it. I would own and go, hey, financially, career-wise, family-wise, I've got some obligations that I need to take care of. I've got some commitments. Like, I owe these commitments my time. And I'm not going to feel shame about that. I'm not going to let fear or doubt or whatever word you would use come in and say, you used to get to dream all the time. You're not dreaming. You failed. You should be doing it more. I wouldn't allow shame to tell me that. I would say I've got commitments, and I've got 70% of my time's going to the commitments. And I hope someday to get back to where it switches, where I do 70% dreaming and 30% commitments. But right now, I tried it. I'm proud of myself for trying it. I got the bruise, I got the scar, I got the story. It didn't work. I wish it did. But right now, I'm going to be okay with being 70% responsibility and 20% or 30% dreaming. All right. Let's see. Do you find that fear clothes itself as loved ones? Can you explain a little more what you mean by that? I want to make sure I understand the question. In that, like, that your loved ones are afraid for you, or they want you to have their fear, like, jump on that, like, explain that just a little more so I can make sure that I answer it correctly, because I think there's a great question in there. All right, let's scroll back up. Signed up and excited. How did you decide to go all in wearing black shirts? Yeah, this is my black sweater. So winter mode, black sweater, summer, black t-shirt. I just don't like, I get decision fatigue real easily. Like it's paradox of choice. Like if I have, like, my closet overwhelms me a little bit. Like if I have like 50 shirts to choose from, I can get frozen. So I try to avoid decision fatigue and be like, okay, I wear black sweaters, I wear black shirts. When I go speak, I wear a suit. Like I have that picked out so that I can use those decisions on other stuff. That's, I mean, that's just the simplest. And everybody looks good in black. Um, Everybody does. Yeah. Jenny Ann prizes. I know, right? It's going to be amazing. Yeah, the Legos prize is legit. It's a big set. I'll tell you that right now. It's a biggie. It's not a small set. It's not a Speed Champion set. If you're a Lego person, it's a big one. Prizes. Queso will not be included. Good question. How do you keep time on social media from being too much and hindering productivity? Samantha. I don't know that I've always done a good job at that. So I just interviewed John Lee Dumas yesterday. Do you guys know John Lee Dumas? He's a massive podcaster, really fascinating and super accomplished and really disciplined. And the podcast, it'll go live in a couple weeks. I have a podcast called All It Takes Is a Goal. But one of the things he said was that he's got a new book, and I'm probably like 30, 40, 50 pages in the new book, and it's good. John Lee Dumas. It's called Uncommon Success, I believe is the title. But he talked about his content system, like how he has a content system. And I realize all too often my content's just chaotic. Like I'm popping on, I'm popping off. It's chaotic. And so that's one of my goals for this year, is to work on a content system and to get ahead of it. So I'm doing the overthinking challenge this next week, Monday through Friday. So I'm deliberately writing, like I'm ahead of the copy, where I'm going, okay, if it's going to be good, I need to write it out. I need to know where I'm going. I need to know what activities we're going to do, what homework I'm going to give. I need to know how day 1 goes with day 5. So I'm getting better at being disciplined to get ahead, because I know ultimately the content will be so much better, like what I end up doing. The other thing I'd say is I deleted Twitter from my phone. Like I just couldn't have this much, like I couldn't have access to, eventually it got too much. And it was my number one social media platform, that I loved. It was my first love, but it was just last maybe May is when I did it. It was just having that much anger in my pocket constantly. And it just was toxic. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to draw a boundary. So I think you figure out which boundaries you need to draw. Reading a bunch of books, including yours, how do you limit your number of principles? 100 principles seems like too many, and 3 seems like too little. So if you're talking about writing a book, how many principles? I just try to remember that, for most people, they're not going to do 100 things. Let me answer this question. Jared, have you ever read a book where you did every single thing in the book? Where they had 20 principles, 30 principles, 40 principles, and you did every single principle? You didn't. Nobody does. Nobody does that. I heard that from Derek Sievers. Derek Sievers, amazing writer. I heard him on a podcast with Tim Ferriss, and they were talking about LL Cool J. How's that for boop, 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 boop? And he said, yeah, I remember LL Cool J told a story once that one person actually did everything he recommended in his book about health. And it worked. It really did. But they did everything. That was one person out of 100,000. And so I try to remember, I want enough principles that it's helpful, but I also want to acknowledge that people already feel overwhelmed. So next week, overcoming overthinking challenge. I could do 100 different ideas, but that's not helpful. Like, you shouldn't give an overthinker 100 new things to overthink. So I got 5 days, and I put them on like, I'm gonna have a huge script on my end, but I want it to be really simple so people can go, oh, I learned the question. Like, day 3, which is Wednesday, I'm going to teach you a question that will generate resilience. Like, it's a question I personally use. I've used it with hundreds and thousands of people all across the world. So it's a question, and it's only got a couple words. Like, it's not that complicated. So I try to simplify things so that people can actually use them. It was a great question. Um, let's see. Coulter, how do you help someone let go of the idea that if they can't be perfect, all is lost? Yeah, well, I mean, that's what the book Finish was about. I wrote this book called Finish that was about perfection. I'll give you the link, guys, again, to the challenge. How do you help them with that? I think it's over time. I think it's over time. Where you try to help somebody get is that, for instance, with a perfectionist, they'd rather get a 0 than a C minus, which is really broken thinking. But I'm a perfectionist, so this is me talking about my own people. Like, I'll meet perfectionists that are like, I'm going to run 3 miles every day, but today I only have time for 2, so I'm not going to do any. And you want to go, mathematically, 2 is way more than 0. It is. 2 is great, but there's this all or nothing mentality. So I think part of your job depends on the relationship. If it's a spousal relationship, if it's work, whatever, is to get them to see the value of getting the C minus. That the C minus isn't failure. That it's your option. It's not. Most often in life, when you're dealing with a perfectionist, they're not choosing between an A plus or C minus. They're choosing between a 0 and a C minus. They just don't know it because they're not going to do the thing. That's the challenge. Jennifer, excited to hear from Jenny. Me too. Like, we've been working on it, and it's gonna be fun. And the story I'm gonna start, Saturday, March 6th, I'm gonna start a story. That's the lesson about something I did. And it's super embarrassing, but it really sets us up to talk about how do you be married to a dreamer. It's not a fun story, but it's something I did that's ridiculous. And I'll tell you all about it. Megan, suggest an action associated with giving fear a voice, but not a vote. Naming out loud, journaling. Yeah, I love journaling. I'm a big, I've got a journal right here. Love journaling. This is my bullet journal. Love it, love it, love it. So a voice, how do you give fear a voice? Yeah, I'd write it down. I think there's a great power in going, whoa, whoa, whoa. What is that fear saying? Like, what's it really saying? How do I write this down and really listen to it? And then to not give it a vote, you then, like, if I was going to make a pros versus cons list of why I was going to do something, here's why I'm launching a podcast, here's why I'm investing in this thing, I'd list all the pros, and fear wouldn't get to be a con. Like, I wouldn't get to say, but what if, like, fear wouldn't even go on the con list because it doesn't get a vote. Like, I do the pros and cons, and fear wouldn't get to go in that. That's how you don't give it a vote. Jay, have you found a good balance between injecting humor, pop culture in your speeches, content, and still maintaining a corporate friendly approach? Hope that makes sense. It makes tons of sense. So here's the thing you have to remember, dude. When you speak to a corporation, everyone in the room is a human. They're all humans. They are. Like, every one of them is a human, and they have lives outside of that conference room, outside of that convention center, whatever. So a lot of times when you make a pop culture reference, they're excited because they're humans. And if it serves the purpose, it's really fun. They feel like, oh, that's right, you're talking to me like a human, not a corporate person. Like, that's the other thing. You have to remember, everyone in the audience is human. Everyone in the audience is human. So that's kind of how I look at it. Where I've had to grow is when I speak to international audiences, which obviously not happening right now. But when I went to Athens, Greece, which was amazing, and did an event for Nokia. And I had to pull out stuff from my content that was too Americanized. And I had more in there than I thought. I was like, oh man, this is a reference to, like, I have a joke that I do. It's a story about Will Smith. And I think I'm putting this story on the podcast next week. But the joke is, when Will Smith was 19, he was going to move to LA. And then I pause and I go, from West Philadelphia, born and raised. And then everybody in the audience goes, I know that. That's a theme song to Fresh Prince. And I go, on the playground is where he spent most of his days. And an American audience is like, that's hilarious. But if you're an international audience, you don't get the joke and it feels distracting and it doesn't feel like it serves the audience. So I have to kind of balance that. All right. How do you make sure fear isn't counting or isn't voting? Yeah. So I think you have to have honest conversation where you go, why didn't I do that? Were there legitimate reasons or did the reasons come down to fear? If there are legitimate reasons, great. Like if you said, I didn't do that thing because I didn't have the money and I tried as hard as I could to come up with the money, but I physically didn't have the money. Maybe that's not fear. But if you look at something you didn't do and you go, I didn't do that thing because I was afraid to share my writing because I thought people would make fun of me. And those are fictional people. Often you can tell fears had a vote if you're responding to fiction. Like you didn't even give those people a chance to like your writing. They're fictional. They don't even really exist. That's how you can tell fear is maybe voting too much. My daughter wants to know how old you are. I'm 45. And you can, I mean, if you look at my hair, it's clearly, I'm getting a haircut in like a little while. So 45. That one's easy to answer. All right. Let's see. You guys are asking great questions. Best advice for someone who took, okay, I already answered that one. How do you decide which idea, if you have several, is the one you pursue first? So Crystal, what I've learned in my life is often if I'm looking for the right idea, perfectionism sneaks in. Right is a cousin word of perfect. So you have to be really careful because if I say, which is the right thing to do next, then like it'll sneak in and it'll get me. And so I don't believe that there's the right thing. I write a lot of different ideas and I see a couple different ideas that I work on and I kind of see which one's going to have the most momentum, which one's going to help the most people. So like next week, I know here's the 5 days I'm teaching. Like these are the 5 topics I'm teaching because I've shared these ideas with other people and they were helpful. So I know, okay, these are the right ones for this week. But a lot of times looking for right stops me from doing anything. And the other thing I'd say is like, here's a powerful soundtrack. So that, that's a word you're going to hear me use a lot because I use it in my life. This is the ARC version. An ARC version is the one they send the press. So it's like, it's not a real version. Write this down. For now, not forever. Like the decision you're making to pick an idea is for now, not forever. Fear gets in and goes, you got to pick the right one because like once you pick the one, you're doing it forever. Like, no, you're not. For now. It's for now. I'm going to try it for a month. I'm going to try it for 6 days. I'm going to try it for 6 weeks, whatever. It's for now, not forever. That's what I try to remember. Ooh, okay. Quintuga, sorry if I mispronounced your name, Quintuga. Do you use loved ones as an excuse not to do something? Oh, yeah. So here's where I see that happen. I see that happen where people go, I'd love to start a business, but I got a family and it's just not the right time and I can't start a business. And they kind of accidentally, I don't think they do it on purpose, they throw their kids under the bus and they go, I would do all these amazing things, but these kids, or I would do all these amazing things, but this husband, this wife, whatever. And if you've got a super broken marriage, like there's things going on that I'm not going to be able to answer or address in a YouTube video live. So I won't even attempt to go like, hey, here's what that looks like. But I think you just have to be really careful because sometimes like we use them as an excuse to not do the hard work. So if you've got a 5-year-old that wants to throw the baseball with you on a Saturday and you do that for an hour and then you go, yeah, I didn't have time to write today. So the 1 hour of the whole day ruined your ability to write and you go, well, my kid, like I wasn't able to do this because of my kid. So I think as parents, we have to be really careful about that. Let's see. I'll answer a couple more and then I got to go get a haircut. Got to look fresh for next week. Overcoming Overthinking Challenge. Sign up today, dude. Sign up. We got 2,300 people. Starts Monday. It's free. If you can't watch the videos live, we'll send you a link. All right. How did I get Jenny to agree to it after so much no? I think she sees how much this topic matters to me. I think she sees how important this topic is to me. This idea of helping people with overthinking. And I think she recognizes, to be frank, like, how do you launch a book when you're a live event speaker and then there's no live events. Like that's challenging. So I think she's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's figure out a new way. Let's serve people in a new way. Let's do live teaching. Like she's game. And she recognizes that like it's a challenging year to launch a book in, just to be frank. Ooh, how do I use Adam, how do I use fear as a tool instead of an inhibitor? Like I want to move ahead in my career and apply for new jobs, but I'm afraid of my past mistakes defining me. Yeah, I get that, Adam. Like I really do. Um, Here's how you use it as a tool. You use it as a source of information. I think when we disregard or we try to push back our fears, we miss a chance to learn. So what I mean by that is if you sit down to apply for a new job and you feel this overwhelming sense of fear about applying, I think it's healthy for you to go, hold on a second. What's really going on? Let me spend 60 seconds just writing down what do I really feel like now? What's the fear I have in my head? What am I afraid of? Like I think you can pause there. I think when you do that, you give the chance for fear to turn into self-awareness. And I think that's really helpful. And then Adam, if it were me, I would find a friend to share that fear with. Like, so I got like just like crushed yesterday, just crushed, like terrible, terrible, like feedback on something. Just, oh, like stomach punched, like out of the blue. Just was just terrible. And I told my friend about it. Like we went on a walk yesterday and I was like, hey, this thing just happened. And if I don't tell somebody about it, it's going to take root and it's going to become a regret and it's going to sit there in my collection of mistakes. And it wasn't a mistake I made. It was just some feedback, some criticism. And like, if I didn't share it, I was going to carry it secretly forever. But because I shared it, I was able to talk to him about it and we were able to carry it together. So I'd get somebody you can carry the stuff with. All right, two more and then we'll roll. Ryan, I've made it, founded a nonprofit and can feed my family. Congrats, dude. That's amazing. There were some questions. Yeah, amen. Having trouble defining the next set of goals. Any advice on focusing on the next set of goals? So Ryan, I think it's important that you celebrate. You celebrate the thing that you built. That's awesome. And then I think you start to go, okay, where do I want to take it to next? What do I want? Is it that I want to scale it? Do I want a bigger nonprofit? Do I want a different nonprofit? Is there a season of my life that's temporary? Like for me, I've got 3 years left with my girls in high school and then they're out of the house. That doesn't mean they won't come back. I get that. But like, that's a goal for me right now. Like I don't want to work 90 hours a week right now. I just don't. Like, even though I love what I do, I see that one of my goals is my family. How do I do that? So if it were me, I would kind of go back to the drawing board and go, which avenue do I want to go with? Where do I want to grow it? Do I want to scale it? Don't scale it if you don't want to. Like, I think that's a real temptation for entrepreneurs, nonprofits, is like, we got to be massive. Maybe it doesn't. All right. Last question. Okay. One thing that can help me meet a deadline. Well, making it public is helpful. Making it public, having somebody that, like for me, I'll give you an example. So I'm writing all this content, content for the 5-day overcoming overthinking challenge. And I've been sending it day by day, chunk by chunk, to the team that's helping me launch this challenge. Now, technically, I don't have to do that. Like, I don't have to send it to Katie, but it's helpful to me to know I have a Katie who's waiting on this content. Even if she's only going to use like 10% of it, it's helpful to me to have that as part of my process. So for me, I need people involved. I have a hard time sticking to my own deadlines when there's other people and expectations and it's bigger than just me. I'm not as isolated and I get to kind of expand, the energy that deadline gives me. So that's one of the things I do. And then I keep it close, but I can't, there's a fine line for me. So my book launches April 6th. And at one point I had counted the days and I was like, oh, it's 83 days, it's 82 days, 82 what, like, and it ended up being too much pressure. I was like, ooh, like I was getting real tense. So now I'm doing by weeks. I'm like 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, because I was getting so obsessed with the actual day and it was adding unnecessary stress. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna keep it chill. So, all right, guys, these questions were fantastic. Like, this is one of the best we've ever had. I love it. I love it. I love it. I can't wait to continue asking and answering some of these next week. So the 5-day challenge starts Monday. Here's the link. It's free. It's overcoming overthinking. 5 days. Day 6, bonus day, is me and my wife, Jenny, talking about how to be married to a dreamer. And we're doing a VIP backstage access, which is going to be so fun, where I get to kind of super serve and go even deeper with a smaller group of people. But check it out. Check it out. I think you'll love it. I'm going to create a ton of content. And it's going to be fun. And I'm going to try it. You got to try stuff. You got to try experiments. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching me do this. One idea. Remember, if you missed the beginning, here's the idea. Fear gets a voice, not a vote. Fear gets a voice. It's going to be there, but it doesn't get a vote. It doesn't get to sit at the table and go, you're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Fear gets a voice, not a vote. Thanks for watching.